Put simply, I'm a public school teacher. I'm one of 3.2 million people in this country who dedicate their lives to educating the 50.7 million students in our public school system. And yes, I say public school system, not private school system, not charter school system, not voucher school system, not homeschool, not religious school, not any of dozens of ways to teach children separate and apart from other children. For I am still one of those old fools who believes that separate but equal means separate and unequal. Because I know my history, I know my pedagogy, I know my civil rights, and I know what goes on in our schools. I am one of the few people in the public debate who actually knows firsthand what our schools are all about, what happens there, what is working well, and what needs to be changed. And I'm willing to actually tell you about it, even though doing so could mean my job, even though doing so may upset my principal, it may upset the superintendent, the school board, the legislature, the governor, the representatives, the senators, the judiciary, the pundits, the think tanks, the billionaire philanthro-capitalists, the ed tech industry, the test prep industry, the school privatization industry, the Secretary of Education, and the President. That's why I'm here this afternoon. I know of what I speak, and I am still willing to speak it. Are you willing to hear it? Even if what I say may sound strange, or radical, or angry. I hope so, because the powers that be are betting otherwise. They need numb, ignorant minds in wealthy white suburbs, and tired, ignorant minds in working-class neighborhoods, and beat-down, ignorant minds in impoverished housing projects. They need all of us, marching in unison to the beat of a drum that goes against our natural rhythm, against our natural common interests. That's how the ruling class gets us to submit to their whims, how we continue to allow ourselves to be ruled. And to do that, they need to destroy our public schools. I know that sounds dramatic, perhaps even paranoid, but it is a demonstrable fact, the result of decades of bribery and coercion, the slow drip of water on our heads. Not the American dream as you and I know it, but an American dream nonetheless. A dream of profit and piracy, a dream for the few at the expense of the many. The total dismantling of public schools, the backbone of this great nation, that is their goal. Why? Because they say our schools are failing. Haven't you heard that? The system doesn't work, so we have to tear it down. It's the only solution. Yet, one, it is a solution that will make things demonstrably worse, and two, it is predicated on a lie. Our public schools are not failing. Do you hear me? Our public schools are not failing. They have been failed. Even as I speak, they are being sabotaged and their ideals corrupted. They are being turned from a system set up with the shining, revolutionary goal to free young minds into the shackles that keep us all pinned down in the muck of a classist, racist status quo. Let me be clear. Our schools are far from perfect. There is much we should change, much I will admonish you to help us change. But the often told lie is that our system is beyond saving. It is old and backward and time for the trash bin. This is one of the biggest falsehoods in America today. What, after all, is a public school? It is an educational institution at the heart of the community, made up of the community to meet the needs of the community. It is a system of teachers, counselors, aides, principals, and administrators dedicated to meeting the needs of every child in the district. We take all the children in our neighborhoods, regardless of their race, nationality, gender, religion, academic needs, emotional deficits. We take all the kids there are in our community, and we attempt to teach them how to function in our society. If that doesn't sound impressive, it should, because it's not the case all over the world. In many countries, they only educate the wealthy kids, or kids up to a certain age, or only if they show aptitude, or only if they're a certain race, or only the boys, or only certain ethnic groups. We are one of the only countries in the world that guarantees every child a free and appropriate education from K through 12. I'm not saying it always works out. I'm not saying there aren't roadblocks to achieving that ideal. There are, and in many cases, they've been purposefully put in place. But you can't have equity if that isn't even your ideal. It is ours. We talk a lot about the American dream in terms of business and financial success, but we have an American educational dream too, that every child will get the same opportunities to learn. That's something we should take pride in, because it's also something the powers that be are trying to take away. So let's talk about it. There is a well-funded, organized plan to destroy public schools. There are people who get up every day with the express purpose to dismantle that opportunity for all children. They are spending billions of dollars to ensure our children don't have that chance, so they don't have an even playing field. And even before the founding of our nation, they have been working to ensure their own supremacy and our own subjugation. Who are they? They're the captains of industry, the wealthy parasites who provide nothing to society but claim the largest portion of the rewards. And to keep themselves perched on our backs, to keep us in place, to keep us fighting among ourselves, they have perpetuated a racial and economic caste system. Sure, it's changed some over the years, but it continues to evolve into the present day. And make no mistake, our schools are part of that system. A deformed society will perpetuate deformed schools, and that is what has happened here. The original sin of American education is segregation. Even today in 2018, it persists. All these years after Brown versus Board made it illegal to have schools for black students separate from schools for whites, we still take every step we possibly can to keep the races apart. In fact, in many places, our schools today are actually more segregated than they were in the 1960s. Today, we still draw district lines to keep white and black kids apart. And when that doesn't work, we allocate them to different schools within the same district to keep white and black kids apart. And when that doesn't work, within the same school building, we put them in different classes to keep white and black kids apart. We do everything and anything to ensure the person sitting next to you in class probably has the same skin tone and comes from the same socioeconomic background. This allows us to discriminate without discriminating. It allows the richer, whiter kids to hoard resources and the poorer, blacker kids to have to do without. Because our schools are segregated, we can send the lion's share of the money to the privileged white children while withholding it from the underprivileged black and brown kids. And in doing so, we can say it's not because we're racist. It's because of the way the district borders were drawn, or the way an individual school's coverage area was devised, or because of the rules in the academic handbook. Never mind that it was human beings who created these rules. It's human beings who enforce and support them. These are just unfortunate consequences. Racism without racists. For the privileged, that means newer buildings, smaller class sizes, more individual instruction, more counselors, wider curriculum, more extracurricular activities, better stocked libraries, more nurses. For the underprivileged, it means crumbling infrastructure, larger classes, fewer teachers, fewer counselors, narrowed curriculum, fewer extracurriculars, meager libraries, and nursing staffs, if at all. These are the realities of education today. Why do we allow it? Because we've been suckered into a bogus definition of accountability. Any sane society would look at what's actually being provided to kids and start from there. But instead, we take a step back and look at standardized test scores. That is the false idol of public education. High stakes, fill in the bubble, corporate written, corporate graded, corporate remediated, standardized tests. They are assessments built to tell us our segregated system is acceptable. Anyone could audit a school and see what resources students are receiving. But it takes a specialized service provider to cover up the sins of our owners. And in so doing, they too get to dip their fingers in the pie and take a piece for themselves. Let's be real here. The unfairness of our system is crystal clear. Our state and federal governments know all children aren't starting from the same place. We don't have an even playing field. Yet they demand all children to hit the same benchmarks. That's like filling two cars up with different amounts of gas and expecting them both to go the same distance. Surprise, it doesn't happen. Moreover, underprivileged kids have greater needs than overprivileged ones. They suffer from greater malnutrition, greater sleep deprivation, greater emotional disturbance, greater exposure to violence, fewer books in the home, fewer positive role models, fewer native English speakers. Before they even enter the system in kindergarten, they're behind their richer, whiter counterparts. Yet they're expected to catch up with little to no help. But that's not all. If the majority of the children in a given school don't meet those benchmarks, we're told it doesn't mean they should get more resources. It doesn't mean we should do anything to help balance the scales. It means we should close their schools and throw them to the wolves of privatization. Step 1, segregated schools. Step 2, unfair funding. Step 3, high-stakes tests. Step 4, close the poorest and blackest schools because of their low test scores. And step 5, let the charter and voucher operators swoop in. Why do we do that? Why is the solution to struggling public schools the creation of privatized schools? Have we ever demonstrated that charter and voucher schools do a better job of teaching students? Are they better at getting kids to meet arbitrary benchmarks without giving them the same resources as the well-resourced schools where kids score better? No, absolutely not. There is not a shred of evidence behind that. Yet a majority of our lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, support it. Why do you think that is? The creation of yet another market that allows private businesses to swoop in and swipe one of the largest single pools of taxpayer money in the country. It's a vicious circle. Privatize, bribe, and none of it revolves around the students. Meanwhile, those poor children who are now in charter and voucher schools have to put up with institutions that no longer are required to accept them. They can be denied enrollment for any reason: race, gender, religion, behavior, difficulty to teach. The choice is all for the charter and voucher operators, not the parents or students. They have to put up with going to a school that is no longer democratically controlled. No more publicly elected school board, no more public meetings, no more school documents being a matter of public record. They spend our money behind closed doors, and we're not allowed to question or even observe what they're doing. The goal is to make money, not educate children. When they can cut services, they do so as to maximize profit. So our children, who have already been slammed with inequitable funding, get an even reduced set of services so the business people can take their cut. And which group of children is more affected by this? Hint, it's not the white kids. It's not the rich kids. It's hardly even the middle-class kids. It's the poor and students of color. That is Betsy DeVos's America. That is Bill Gates' America. That is the system championed by plutocrats on the left and right. And it is the reason I am here today. Paulo Ferrari wrote, "To speak a true word is to transform the world. I have spoken truth. Here's hoping we can change the world together." Thank you.